Okay, so I'm going to show you how to make this watercolor into, have a transparent background and make it into a PNG. So I opened this image in Photoshop, and this really wasn't intended for a brush, so I'm probably going to have a little bit of trouble down here. And so in order to kind of fix that, because this part of the image has like a little bit of color to it, I'm gonna mess around a little bit with my my levels. So I'm gonna go to adjustments and levels, and I'm gonna just bump up those highlights a little bit so I get a little bit more contrast and I start to get rid of that coloring down there. I can also fool around with the gray slider to kind of bring back in some of the brightness that I lost when I bumped up those highlights. And I can mess around with that, and I'm just going to hit OK. So basically what I want to do is I want to get rid of all of this white and make it transparent. So I'm going to go to my layers panel. I'm going to unlock that just by double clicking, and I'm going to call this watercolor. So I'm just changing the name of my layer. Without getting too crazy into Photoshop, I think that the best tool for this is probably to select your background with using the color range selection tool. So if I go to select on my menu and go down to where it says color range, what happens here is it gives me, actually it looks like it's almost kind of perfect here. It gives me, oh geez, I messed it up. So let me hit cancel really quickly. I'm going to try that again. Select color range. Basically, this gives me the ability to kind of select based on a color. So if I click somewhere on my screen, you'll see that that area and any colors that are similar to where I clicked are selected. So if I want to add to that, I can hold down my shift key. You can see that at my cursor there's like a little plus sign, and so I can click and I can start to kind of pick up other colors that are here. And I can even pick up that light purple. And so this allows me to kind of get that fuzziness, that edge there. There's like a little tiny bit right there. And then I also can fool around with this slider, which is my fuzziness. I probably don't want to increase that at all because it starts to kind of pull in from my actual like painting. So if anything, I'm going to want to decrease that. And so once I hit OK, what this does is it creates a selection. So we haven't really discussed anything in Photoshop. I'm assuming that you have some experience and some knowledge here. But anytime you see these little dancing ants, that means that there's a selection made. So right now what we have selected is actually this, color thing that we have here. Sorry, our watercolor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a mask from this selection. So I make sure that I'm on that watercolor layer, and then down here at the bottom of my layers panel, you see this little rectangle with a circle in it. It kind of looks like a Japanese flag. And if you click on that, what it's going to do is it's going to create a mask. Now, you'll notice that this layer mask, the black area is now hidden and the white area is still visible. So what we want to do is invert this. I could have inverted it before making the mask, but I'm going to invert it after making the mask. So I'm going to go to my properties panel, and I'm going to go down here where it says invert. And what that's going to do is it's basically going to invert my mask, and it's going to hide all of the white area. And the only reason that I'm making a mask is because I want to make sure that the area that I had selected, that there aren't any pieces missing. So for instance, like in here, I can still see some of, I can see some area that was deleted. There's some areas over here too, but I think I'm just going to leave those the way that they are. This one, I think I'm going to fill back in. So in order to do that, when I'm on my layers panel, I can toggle between my actual image and I can toggle between my mask. I want to make sure that I have the mask selected, and I'm going to choose my paintbrush. And again, the part that I can see is represented by the color white. So here in Photoshop, you have your foreground and your background. You want to switch those and make sure your white is in front, because whatever color is in the foreground is the color that you'll actually be able to paint with. And so I want to make sure that my mask is selected, and I'm just going to paint over that area that I missed in the selection. And any other areas that I might want to add, those I think I want to keep as transparent. And then once I'm finished, unfortunately I've got some like weird ending here, but we're just going to go with it. And so now what I'm going to do is, because I want this background to be transparent, I have to save it as a PNG. I can save this as a Photoshop if I wanted to kind of go back and edit it further, if I wanted to mess around with that mask. But the way that I do that is I'm going to go to File. You can either save as or export. I'm going to do export as. And the reason that I want to do that is because it's going to allow me to choose to have a transparent background, which is important. If you do a quick export to a PNG, I think that it makes your background white. So bear with me, my computer is being a little slow. So up here at the top right, you're going to see where it says Format. You're going to click on that and you're going to choose PNG. It's taking some time to preview. I just want to make sure that it's going to end up having a transparent background. This is actually kind of a large file because I scanned it in pretty high. I don't know what I was going to do with it, but so it's showing, there you go. So now it's showing me that checker box, which means that the background is going to be transparent. And we're going to just say export all. Not the best practice, but I am going to save this to my desktop so I can access it pretty easily. And I'm just going to save it as Watercolor PNG. You probably want to be a little bit more specific when you're saving it. All right, so now if I went into Illustrator and I'm going to go to File and Place, and I save that on my desktop. There it is, my Watercolor PNG. I'm going to place this. And then you should be at the point where you are ready to work with it. So here I'm noticing that I have a little bit of this section that was not masked. So this is one of the reasons why you might want to save it as a Photoshop file. So I'm going to go back to my mask, and this time I'm going to paint with black. So if I want to switch the foreground and the background, and this works for Illustrator too, I can hit X on the keyboard and that's just going to give me that. So now I can go in and kind of get rid of that just by painting on here. If I really want to be able to kind of like see what's going on, because obviously I missed that, I could create like a new layer that I put behind this, and I fill with black. So in order to fill with black, I'm pressing D on my keyboard, which is going to give me those default colors. I'm actually going to press X as well so that I make sure my black is in the background. And then I'm going to hit Command or Control Backspace, and that'll fill it with black. So this is showing me like all those areas that I might want to get rid of. Whoops. So now I'm going to go back to my mask and I'm going to paint with black because obviously there's a lot that I missed here. And I'm going to get rid of all that extra texture that's here. And there might be some texture that you want to keep, but I want to get rid of all this. I still have this like awkward edges here. Obviously, this was not intended for this particular application, but so once that's done, I'm gonna either hide or get rid of that back layer, and I'm gonna save it as a PNG again. So I'm saying export, export as, and I'm probably just gonna save right over that PNG that I previously saved, so that actually when I do this, because I haven't really made any changes to, I'm just gonna make sure that it's PNG. Also, to make it a transparency, you have to make sure that this transparency box is checked. I'm gonna just assume that it's right without seeing the preview, and go back to my desktop and then save right over top of that. It's gonna ask me if I want to replace it. I'm gonna say yes. This is the part that I would fast forward if I had editing capabilities with my videos. I don't think I'm going to have time to do that right now, but okay, so now when I go back to Illustrator, what's nice about this is because I haven't like rasterized this file yet, it's actually linked to its original file. So the fact that I saved over that original file, this is saying some files are missing or modified in the links panel. Would you like to update them now? So this image is still linked to its original file. So if I say yes, what happens is all those changes that I made in Photoshop automatically appear here. And so that's it. So that's how you can create any sort of image. It doesn't have to just be a watercolor. You could mess around with charcoal or acrylic paint or any other kind of medium that you want to work with and get the same effect. You just have to make sure, ideally, if you were doing it for a brush and you had that intention, you would kind of paint it a little bit differently and make sure that your edges weren't chopped at all. So now I can kind of proceed. I probably would rotate this a little bit just to kind of make sure that it's in that same orientation for a watercolor brush. And I might have also kind of taken out this green a little bit if I was going to kind of create a brush out of this, but you guys get the idea. All right, if you have any other questions, let me know, and hopefully this helps.